Welcome into the Dynasty review for your Houston Texans, America's team, not the Cowboys. 10-7 this year, won a playoff game. Pretty amazing. No one expected it. Brian, Houston Texans, I think one of the more exciting Dynasty teams with the assets they have. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. And don't forget, didn't Stroud and Will Anderson just win MVP rookies awards?
Rookie of the year. I don't know, actually. I was kind of behind on the rewards, but that sounds right. I'll look it up, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Stroud definitely won offensive rookie of the year, but I'm pretty sure it's Will Anderson, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, Will Anderson is the guy. What can I find?
I can't even find him on the depth chart. Well, I guess I should be control Fing, but yeah, definitely a big surprise team this year. No one really expected for them to do what they did. They kind of remind me of the Packers in that way, for different reasons. Like basically, you can't call Jordan Love a rookie because he's been in 3 years, but still, basically the first year of these two quarterbacks starting, and very exciting. Like, I definitely think they make their teams better in general. Like, Stroud definitely lifted these guys out of the dirt because they were I think they were 30th in scoring in 2022 and 2021, with Davis Mills. God, I'm like looking at these names as I'm going. I'm like, I'm saying the right guys, right? Like,
yeah.
How quickly we forget and look at the new shiny toy kind of a thing. But yeah, no, he definitely changed this franchise for the better, and he looks good.
Yep. They kept their offensive coordinator, which was really big because he did really well with Stroud. So excited to see what brings what 2024 brings. So DeMeco Ryans is their head coach. They have the fourth most cap space in the NFL at over $65 million. They have 8 draft picks. So, they have first, second, third, and 2 fourths, which is really nice. Free agents, not a whole. I mean, a couple of players: Devin Singletary, Noah Brown, Dalton Schultz. We'll talk about those guys when we get there. So we'll just jump in with CJ Stroud, and pretty awesome. One of the better rookie seasons from a quarterback we've ever seen, and it's being reflected in the Keep Trade Cut Dynasty rankings. He's up to QB3, and I've seen startup drafts people showing their startup draft videos, and I've seen him going as QB3. I think it's a little too high. Personally, CJ Stroud was awesome. Can he get better? Of course he can. But we do gotta recognize his season was good, not for a rookie it was amazing, but his fantasy year, he averaged 18.7 points per game. Kyler Murray averaged more points than CJ Stroud. Obviously, a little bit short of a sample size, but I don't think a lot of people would expect that, right? So I don't know if he's not going to run the ball, which he didn't really show he was going to do this year, but he's shown in college that he can at times. But if he's not going to do that, he has to get close to 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns to be QB3, So do you think it's a little bit too high for him, the QB3 spot? Would you still take guys like Lamar and Hurts and Burrow over Stroud?
Yeah, and Herbert too. I'd throw him in that category. Even though I think Herbert's probably the closest one out of all those guys you just mentioned, just given the unknowns with the new coaching staff and the unknowns of the weapons with Herbert. But yeah, I'm fine. If I can trade Stroud, here down, so to speak, and pick up, I just don't know who's really doing that, but I mean,
I don't know. Some people might really like him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I can trade him and pick up, Jordan Love and a first or something like that, it's is that even possible? Let's see.
Probably not, but
yeah, maybe
I mean,
not.
Maybe for the calculator.
Yeah, I know. It's actually saying pick 104 evens the trade. So Jordan Love in the 104. Wow. It's like I don't think you're not getting that, most likely. But I don't know. Like I'd be totally fine with that, honestly. Like any first, really. Like even if it's the 108, 101. I was going to say 1012, but that's dumb. And I said it anyways. But yeah, no, I think he's a perfect dude to sell high on, but don't give him away, obviously, because I think he has a very promising career ahead of him. Like what you mentioned, like 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, like we'll have to wait and see. That's a pretty far road to go for him from where he finished this year, basically 4,123 touchdowns. But, we saw a lot of promising signs. Like, could he do that? Sure. Like, I think so. Like, he's got good weapons, who we'll get into in a little bit. But I think one of the things that really makes him stand out is very, only threw 5 interceptions, so he's very kind of calculated, and like the way he throws is it's just very impressive to watch, especially as a rookie, but just in general.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like he's awesome. That's definitely not what, if you are going to trade him, you need to either be getting a quarterback that's in the top 8 or 9 and getting a plus on top, a pretty good plus, like a mid first with Jordan Love, or you need to be getting like just a boatload of like picks and young prospects for him. Like you're not trading him, laterally for anything. You're not adding anything to him to get to like Joe Burrow. I probably wouldn't do that and stuff like that. So it's more about just capitalizing on that value. And, if you want to have like him over Herbert, I'm totally fine with that. Like I'm not going to argue at all. So that's about it. I mean, Davis Mills sorry, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. Davis Mills, like he had his moment, looked good his rookie year, and then they gave him basically the starting job in 2022, and that led to them getting CJ Stroud because he didn't really play that well. So I don't know. I'm probably not holding Davis Mills, but I don't know. Maybe I guess in this offensive system, he could, if he had to take over for Stroud for a few games, he actually could be decent, maybe. So maybe I will hold on to him. What about Davis Mills? Anything you want to say?
No, I don't think there's much there. Like we saw him for basically 2.5 years. I guess maybe closer to 2 years, given like the games that he started and everything. But or no, that's not even true because they haven't missed 6 games this in 2023, which were only 2 he started. I think. Like, oh yeah, no, actually not really. Yeah, that's just how many he actually played in. Yeah, so no, I don't really think there's anything there. Like, you're not cutting him right now for no reason, but I mean, he lost his job, obviously. Like, I don't think he's shown anything to even be like a decent backup, like anywhere. Like, I don't know. I don't want to say he's like trash or anything like that, but I just don't think there's anything there, honestly.
Yeah, just sitting there thinking about it, I do want to walk that back a little bit just because I'm thinking about, this offensive system comes from the San Francisco tree, the Shanahan tree, and we're definitely holding on to Darnold or Trey Lance when he was the backup. We're definitely holding on to the Miami, same tree, the Miami backup quarterback, because I do think actually if he does get into this system, he actually might be decent. So I will walk that back a little bit. Like, he is maybe one of the backup quarterbacks I might want to keep on a roster just because of more about the system that he's in. So, but no one else there. Case Keenum or Tim Boyle. The running backs, Singletary, I feel like they might bring him back. He was good for him when they took over the job. So he had the most rushing yards in his career. He caught 30 passes, only 4 touchdowns, but he was solid for him when he took over. So I think he comes back to this team. So I'm fine with he's one of the running backs. Like, all right, if I just have Devin Singletary as my guy to start the year, and because I sold off a couple other guys, like I'm totally fine with it. But Like if I could throw a third at Singletary, I might, assuming just kind of hoping that he comes back with Houston. So anything you want to say on Singletary? Like I know it's a guy that we've kind of always liked. He just never really got the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, he was stuck on Buffalo for all those years, and he was kind of the dude, like, where it was like, man, like, Buffalo just doesn't use their running backs like the way we want them, you know? And then he had it's kind of funny that him and Zach Moss both aren't on the Bills, and they basically had like career years now, you know? Like, because I remember when Moss came in, I think it was in Singletary's second year, it was kind of like, oh no, you know, he was taking goal line work, but not even all of it, obviously, because of Josh Allen. But yeah, I've always liked Singletary in general. He's never been a star player, you know, like like I think this situation was about as good as it can be for him. You know, he was effective, but still not, you know, like definitely not a focal point of the offense. So I think like kind of what you said, like he's like a low end, or let's say a high end running back 3 kind of a thing, as far as like if he is in the same situation and you're starting him, like he's obviously has some upside, but it's not a huge ceiling. So
yeah, no, for sure. But if I can get him as a throw-in piece, like I'm just like looking at some guys that are, you know, 5, 6, 7 spots ahead, like Jerome Ford. Like if someone wanted to give me Singletary and a third for Jerome Ford, I'd probably just take it, you know, like, and just assume like, Singletary might outperform him. Like it wouldn't surprise me or something like that. So, you know, Zamir White's kind of in the same boat there. Like, yeah, if someone wants to give me like Singletary and something for one of those guys, like I'll happily do it and just bank on, you know, him finding a role somewhere. So wouldn't be surprised if he comes back. Also wouldn't be surprised if they bring in, there's a lot of good free agent running backs, you know, like Saquon Barkley or something. Like what if they bring him in? So maybe they do that. And then, yeah, Antonio Gibson, Eckler, or something like that. So it seems like a nice spot for a running back, either through the draft or free agency, if they don't bring Singletary back. And even if they do, maybe. Dameon Pierce is like, wow, the mighty have fallen type of thing. Like he was as high as RB9. He got as high as RB9. It's just, again, it's the perfect example of like, you always got to think about selling, especially running backs, when you see RB9 next to their name, you know, depending on who they are. But especially if a new coaching staff comes in. So his value it dropped a bit. It went from like RB9 to RB 15, 16 when the season ended last year. I would have sold him, you know, low, mid, what was it, day 3 draft capital, new coaching staff coming in. Like, it's just a lesson we need to learn, you know, like just sell those guys. Are you going to be right every time? No, but you're probably going to be right 7 out of 10 times, you know? So that sucks a lot. Like, is there any hope for him at all? Or do you think it's just done?
No, well, I mean, the only real hope is that he is the dude under contract still. He didn't show anything this year to be like, oh yeah, he's going to be the dude, you know, like obviously there was some injury and stuff, but they obviously like they trusted him, especially earlier on in the season, you know, like he had quite a few carries through right before the bye, but they kind of made that switch around then. And then, well, I don't know, it could have been more injuries than anything. And it was kind of like, oh, well, Singletary's doing just fine. So I don't think he's going to be the main dude there, but I don't know if he's necessarily going to be like thrown away, you know, like, so I think he's a solid hold right now. I don't think you're getting much for him, but no, I agree. Like what you said, like, as far as like, man, that's crazy to me to think about, like that he was that high. Like I knew people were really excited about him, but I mean, I think we would have said similar things about Pacheco last year. And so that kind of plays into what you said. It's like, are you going to be right all the time? You know, obviously the big difference was we knew Pacheco was on the Chiefs. So it was like very, you know, obviously completely different situations as far as what we thought about the offenses. So that was a huge difference, but it's just kind of like, yeah, like these day 3 plus guys, you know, I guess there isn't a plus there. But yeah, I guess. Yeah. I got to imagine they call those guys on day 3. No, I don't know. Yeah. No, but yeah, the point is, like, I think you're right about if you could have sold him, like, for that, if you could have got a first round pick for him at that point, like, obviously that would have been awesome. But again, hindsight.
Yeah. The biggest thing is the coaching change, like, I understand if you wanted to keep him because the coaching staff didn't change or something. Antonio Gibson's another one of those guys. He got as high as RB5 in the 2021 season, and they didn't have a coaching change, so a little harder to predict he was going to fall so much. But yeah, it's just running backs are way too volatile to, like, if you can get really good value for those, which you can't for top 5, top 7, top 10 running backs, is to sell them off when you can. So no one else in the running back room to talk about. The wide receivers are pretty awesome. I mean, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. Do you have a preference? I think we've already talked about this, but do you have a preference of those two?
Yeah, I think I'm in line with the consensus of keep, trade, cut. It's like I'll take the 6'4", 215-pound guy in Nico Collins over Tank Dell. Like, I mean, obviously Tank Dell had like a great rookie year when he was playing, but I guess I just feel like Tank Dell kind of showed us, like, we were worried about his size in general, like more, being 165 pounds, which, he can lift some weights and stuff, get up there a little bit. But obviously, like, he was great when he was playing. Showed a lot of flashes for sure. Like, I think, Nico is kind of like, he's being valued at, did I see wide receiver 10? Here's my tab here. Or no, 12. Which is pretty high, like, I'm kind of curious to hear what you have to say about Nico, because I know you like to say, like, well, if he has his best year, 3 years into his career, like, obviously the situation completely changed with the quarterback. He's never played with anyone like Stroud before this year. Like, what do you think about that? Like, do you sell Nico Collins at this point? Or does he not exactly fit the mold of what you normally say, where it's like best year, 3 years in, like, hands down best year, like, amazingly good, better than both his first 2 years put together? Do you just sell him for a ransom right now and just move on?
I'd always think about selling. A little different with them because, he's tied to Stroud. Biggest thing for me is, like, they're going to have to pay him soon if they want to keep him. And so I think there's a decent chance that they bring someone in, like, through the draft potentially, to kind of, even though they might not need a receiver in 2024, they're kind of preparing for 2025 and beyond. So that could affect them. So I was a lot more on the, I'm going to sell Nico Collins if I can boat. And then the playoffs happened, and that changed a little bit of, like, how I felt. Like, even, I know it's kind of crazy, but, like, just like the last few games of the season and the playoffs included, like, it's like now, like, Nico Collins is pretty good. So would I be surprised if he's a top 12 wide receiver next year? No. Could I see that falling off, like, after next year to, like, pretty, like, we're looking at it in 2025 and we're like, oh damn, like, Nico Collins is like wide receiver 30 or something. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. So I'd want, he's getting close to, like, potentially multiple firsts is what I want for him, so I don't know, like, I don't think I'm just taking any random 2025 first for Nico Collins unless I can really predict that team's going to be bad. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. I don't know if that answered your question there, but
yeah, I think it did. I think, like, he is one of those dudes, like, he started off as wide receiver 55 as the season started, and now he's wide receiver 12 by consensus on keep, trade, cut. Sorry. Did I say that right? 55-12. Did I feel like I said those numbers wrong.
No, got it.
But yeah, so I can't blame anybody like for moving off of him, like just kind of cashing out your chips kind of a thing. But I do agree. Like, I think he's like just a good player in general. And like, it's not like he did nothing his first 2 years. Obviously there was a few injuries there. And just, just on a very, very low scoring offense in general, he didn't quite hit that 500-yard mark either of his first 2 seasons, but he also didn't play the entire time. I know we kind of talk about that 500-yard mark every now and then, but I just feel like his situation's changed so much for the better. Like, and, like you mentioned at the beginning of the video, they have $65.5 million in cap space. So it's like, yeah, maybe they will like pay him a little bit of money, maybe not crazy money, like, but I don't know if he should necessarily be expecting that after 1 good year out of 3. So,
yeah, and it could turn into a 49ers situation where there's like 4 guys. What if they do get Saquon, and what if they do draft someone? It's like, oh, there's like 4 guys that can go off at any point for them. So, but yeah, I definitely want multiple firsts for Nico if I'm going to trade him, or like the 105 or up in this year's draft, 106 maybe in this year's draft. That's basically where I'm at with him. And Tank Dell, I think, is awesome. I liked him a lot in college. I got shy, I shied away a little bit just because of the size. I let that kind of play in my head and just kind of slightly ignored like what we saw with your own eyes and the production on the field. And yeah, he was awesome. He did break his leg, which that could affect him, into next year. But I think he's just a really good wide receiver tied to CJ Stroud. And CJ Stroud wanted him on the team. They wanted him to draft him. So wanted the Texans to draft him, and they did. So, yeah, he's one of the better. Was he like the second best rookie this year behind Puka? Like, I know overall, not necessarily, but like in the time he played, was he kind of better than like Zay Flowers and maybe Rashee Rice, maybe not Rashee Rice or Addison? It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah. You'd have to like really like break it down. It's like, I think it's not. I mean, he missed almost half the season, kind of a thing. They say I have him at playing 11 games, but 2 of those he left early, 1 very early. The game against Denver. I guess. Oh yeah, that's where he broke his leg. I thought he had a catch in that game for some reason. But anyways, I think he's kind of one of those dudes where it's kind of like he's kind of hard, because I've actually noticed that he's been falling in Dynasty, and I've been kind of trying to figure out why, because I was actually looking to trade him in one of my leagues, like not because like I think he's bad or anything like that, or he's going to be bad when he comes back, but it's just one of those things. Like, he just seems kind of like given my roster and everything, like if I can turn him and kind of like, a couple of seconds into like a higher end asset, like I was kind of looking at that. But honestly, like literally from, in the last 5 days, he fell from wide receiver 14 down to wide receiver 22. And I'm not exactly sure why. Like I kind of assumed it was from guys moving up, but it's just kind of weird. Like, he hasn't even played in the last week and he's dropping a bunch of spots. So not really sure what's going on there. You got any insight on that you'd like to share?
No, I don't really know why either. I mean, it feels like it's not going to be reflected. Like, you're not going to be able to get him for any lower value than you were from when he was like wide receiver 14 to 22. I feel like so.
Yeah,
he has a giant tier.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's kind of like the best thing that I can figure out, because so Nico Collins and him are 10 spots apart, but like the actual spread of points between them, like, like if you guys are familiar with Keep Trade Cut, it's, like they're basically saying Tank Dell is like around 5,200 and Nico Collins is around 5,400. So it's not a huge difference, honestly. So I think that's probably why he's moved down so much, because if you look at the guys that are like right above him, there's only like 100-point spread, and you move up to wide receiver, 18 or whatever above Rice, which, like it kind of makes sense. Like, Drake London got a big push up because they, who's their coach again? Like he basically said like, oh yeah, Drake London and Bijan are going to be the offense kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, Higgins is starting to get some hype because we don't know where he's going to go, and he could be the dude if he does go somewhere. So it kind of makes sense, but like I think that it's a little misleading that he's down at 22. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting, like that precipitous drop, because I have been like looking at him over these last like 2 weeks as a trade candidate, and it's like, oh no, I missed my window kind of a thing, Like I don't think you have though.
No. And if you do take those numbers, like if you take out those 2 games he left early, he was on pace for like a massive season. So like 1,400 yards type of season. And that is a negative to Nico Collins. Like what if Tank Dell was just the best receiver on this team? So you got to take that into account as well.
It's definitely possible, but I just feel like the way that Stroud plays, like just watching him, like, we talked about his throwing and stuff like that. Like, I think he could easily support 2 top 15 receivers, if they stay healthy and like that offense is really humming the way we saw it kind of a thing.
Yeah. Noah Brown, it'll be telling if they bring him back, they could maybe not bring in another receiver and just roll with those 3 again. So a hold for now, but obviously I think he's more valuable on the Texans than anywhere else. Robert Woods is old. John Mechie just doesn't seem like it's going to work out, even though he's a 2nd-round pick. But, he kind of had an opportunity there and just hasn't done anything. So he's probably just a cut at this point. Anything you want to say on any of those guys or other receivers there?
No, not really. Mechie's kind of an interesting one. Because he did miss his entire rookie campaign it was like leukemia or something, right? Like, which obviously everyone's happy that he beat that, but yeah, we didn't really see anything from him this year. It was all Nico and Tank, Oh no, I mean, like you mentioned, Noah Brown and stuff, but yeah, I think he's okay to cut to replace as a rookie. I don't know if I'm necessarily cutting him for like my 4th-round pick necessarily, just maybe like to see like another year, but yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot there.
Yeah, I should mention Xavier Hutchinson's name. He could potentially be the wide receiver 3 for this team if they don't bring anyone else in and they let Noah Brown go. And so we saw what Noah Brown did for a couple weeks there. He was start worthy, especially in like obviously a best ball. You don't have to start anyone, but so I'll throw his name out there as like, maybe he can hold and see what happens in free agency. What's that? Deep sleep, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Dalton Schultz. I'm actually interested. Brevin Jordan might be interesting. The tight ends here. He had like a ridiculous run. Yeah, and the 1 catch for 76 yards and a touchdown in the Cleveland game. But he just showed like some athleticism. So whoever's the starting tight end for this team is going to be pretty good, I think. Probably a top 12 tight end. I don't know if it's going to be Schultz or not. It could be, but I don't really know what else to say about Schultz without really knowing where he's going to go. They could bring him back. They got a lot of money. So, like you said.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. Like, whoever the starting tight end is that's going to be here will be somewhat valuable. Don't go nuts, but yeah, like Brevin Jordan only played when Schultz was out for a couple of games, and then basically Schultz came back and he was riding the bench kind of a thing. Like, he was only playing a little bit, but obviously younger and tied to the team for another year. Schultz is not necessarily, and I think his value kind of reflects that, because he's actually, I have him on that same team I was talking about with Tank Dell, and I think isn't he down at 19? Yeah, so he's down at 19, tight end 19. Like, he's he's obviously like he's a good, not great tight end. Like like when he was with Dallas for the beginning of his career, like good touchdown threat. How Dallas likes to use their tight ends, and like I don't think he's anything special, but I think if he comes back to the Texans, like I would not mind starting him like throughout the year, kind of a thing.
Yeah, for sure. And he could end up on another good team. So, yeah. And Brevin Jordan, maybe hold on to, see what they do. He could be the starting tight end for this team. So, I think that's it. Anything else on the Houston Texans?
Nope, I don't think so. I was just looking up to see what do you. So basically, I was just looking at Dalton Schultz. Like, what can you acquire him for? It's like, a late second. If you can get him for like an early third, pay a little bit less than that. Like, I think that's fine because I think if he does go somewhere, like they will kind of use him. They did give him a 1-year contract going into this season. Houston did, so maybe it was kind of a prove it thing. They didn't know they were going to be as good as they were, so I think he was actually like a pretty important piece in their offense. Not necessarily entirely in the passing game, but he was definitely involved. So if they try and like recreate what they did this year while even getting a little better, like I think keeping him is actually pretty smart, like for the Texans. So
yeah. But yeah, we'll finish up there. We'll be back with the Buffalo Bills in the next video. And we will catch you guys then. Like and subscribe. We will see you in the Bills video.